This video is entitled Objects and Classes and is a companion piece to the book An Introduction to STEM Programming with Python 3, Chapter 9. I'm James Imbrano, PhD from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this brief this introduction. In this video, I'm not going to get directly into Python or how to create classes or objects, but I want to talk about the basic concepts and a few of the definitions used in object-oriented programming: the class, the object, the method, and the attribute, also sometimes called a property. Object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm, or kind of a way that we program, that defines units of code that describe things, mostly real world things. It helps us simplify our complex programming systems and complex problems by hiding how things are implemented. Because if a programmer were to create an object or create a class definition and then documents that class definition, how to use it, you as a programmer don't really have to understand what it does in detail. You just need to understand how to use it, and it handles the details of implementation. So a class object-oriented programming allows us to define structures and data types that go along with a thing, and it also allows us to define actions to go along with the thing. And as long as you've got it well written, you can pass that on to somebody else, and they don't need to know how it works. They just need to know how to interface with it and how to talk to it. We've seen object-oriented programming throughout our other introductory chapters to Python, because you've used a dot something to get to, to append an item to a list. Well, list is a list class, a list object, and we've used the append method. So you're familiar with it, using objects and using classes. You just never created them. But let's go on and define those other terms. The first term that I want to introduce is something called a class. And a class defines, in general, how to make individuals. And these individuals all belong to a group. They've all got to be similar. They all would have similar attributes and properties that members of this group would have. They would all have actions that all of the members of this group would be able to do. They would all have default values that members of this group would have. And the other thing that a class defines, besides the attributes and the methods and the initial values, would be the relationships between items of this class and items of another class. So a class is used to think about a group of individuals that all kind of belong to the same thing. They could be a group of buttons on a computer screen. They could be a group of people in a school system. They could be assignments in a school system. They could be all kinds of things, pets at a veterinarian's office. You can see how those are groupings of individuals of specific instances, and we call those specific instances objects. And since I mentioned object, let's go on and talk about objects. An object is a specific instance of a class. So think about me as a specific instance of the class human being. You would be another specific instance of the class human being. Your family members each would be individual instances of the human or person class. You have your own unique signature, you have your own unique name, you have your own unique properties, personalities, values, social security numbers, and all of those kinds of things that are uniquely you. But every human being has certain methods, have certain standard values. But also every human, like a birthday, death day, some of those kinds of things. But every human being also would have methods. For instance, the wake up method, the go to sleep method, the get born method, the die method, the graduate from high school method. Those would all be things that humans do, that people do, that we want to track in our system. And then remember that people can be related to other people. So there would be this person is related to my wife, which is another person, or you are related to your siblings, which are other people. Um, and you can even have relationships with classes with other objects that aren't even humans. For instance, you own your car. Well, a person owns a car. Well, the car would be an object of the class automobile or of the class vehicle. Um, and you can see how those relationships between objects, and these are all defined at the class level, but an object is an individual instance of a class. Think about it that way. An object is an individual instance of a class and has its own properties, has its own specific values of the attributes. So let's talk about attributes. Attributes are defined at the class level. So the class defines the attributes that an object would have. And attributes, really, you can think of them as variables. The variables that go along with me, like my name and my birthday and my social security number and all of those kinds of things, just like the same variables go along with you or go along with you or go along with other people. So you could think of them as variables. Now, some of these variables in some object-oriented programming are public, which means you can see my variable. You can manipulate my variable, you can manipulate my property or my attribute. And sometimes programmers may create private variables that the object knows. The object knows what the value is, but you don't know. Um, for instance, maybe I want to keep my birthday a secret. I've created the object with my birthday. I'll tell you my age, but I'm not telling you my birthday. So my birthday might be a private variable that the object knows that it would use to calculate something else. So there could be public variables, there could be private variables or private attributes that go along with an object, a specific instance of an object or instance of a class, which is an object. Methods. I've mentioned methods. Methods are actions that an object can do. Like I say, a person wakes up in the morning, goes to bed, um, wakes up, sleeps, born, die, marries, graduates. All of those are various things that a person, a class might do. Those are things that an individual person might do and other people might not. You can think of them as defs. They're Python defs, they're subroutines functions that are built into the class definition and follow along. Um, they're shared across multiple objects of the same class. So if you have a class of person and person has a born, well, then everybody has a born. Um, Now we could have private and public methods, but the method on me, you run a method on me, it's going to manipulate my data. You run the same method on another person, on another instance of the object person, another instance of the class person, the object. It'll work on their data instead of working on my data, instead of working on another instance's data. So methods. Methods are these things that classes can do, that an object can do. I just wanted to spend that extra few minutes with this video going over those terms of what is a class, broad definition, what is an object, an instance of that definition, a specific individual or a specific member of that class. Attributes are the values that that specific member can have, and methods are the things that member can do. I'd like to say thank you for watching. Remember, this presentation is copyright 2020 by James M. Renault, PhD. You can contact me at jrenault@shawnee.edu if you have any questions. And this work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial Share Alike 4.0 International License.